Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Halloween horror movie review. Got an interesting one for you today. This is Frankenstein from 2004. It was a TV movie that aired on the USA Network, directed by Nispel. Yeah, a director whose work I really like. He, of course, did Pathfinder, and he did the 2011 Conan movie. So I was really curious about this one. And then further curious, it's executive produced by Martin Scorsese, features a theme tune by Angelo Badalamenti, stars Parker Posey, Vincent Perez, Thomas Kretschmann, Michael Madsen, Adam Goldberg, and the original story was co-developed by Dean Koontz. So this thing has some serious pedigree attached to it. So what went wrong? How come nobody ever talks about this one? What's the deal with this? Like, why is this not more recognized? Well, let's talk about it. Frankenstein, 2004, today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. So, this version of Frankenstein takes place in modern day. We have Parker Posey as Detective Carson O'Connor and Adam Goldberg as her partner, Detective Michael Sloan, and they're investigating a strange series of murders. Michael Madsen also co-stars as another detective. So this is a very strange series of murders. All of the victims have one thing in common, and that is that they've always had several organs removed. Now, they take one of the bodies to a coroner to be examined, and he discovers something very strange about this body. Some of the organs seem to be enhanced, and in some cases, there are multiple organs. For example, the body they discover actually has 2 hearts. No, it's not a Time Lord, but the coroner says, well, this person would have the most ridiculously efficient circulatory system having 2 hearts. And it doesn't stop there. There's other organs of which there are multiples or are just seem to be more efficient or enhanced in some ways. So they're really kind of scratching their heads like, what is this person? So Detective O'Connor meets a man, a very large man, who goes by the name of Deucalion. And at first she thinks he might be involved in the murders, but that isn't the case. However, he does seem to have considerable knowledge about the victims and who they might have been and how they might have all been related. So essentially what we have here is a story that postulates a couple of things. First, it says, what if the story of Frankenstein wasn't actually a story? What if it really happened? And what if, at the end of that story, they didn't actually die, as they do in the book, but survived? So Deucalion is, of course, the Frankenstein monster, still alive after 200 years. And he reveals that Dr. Victor Frankenstein, who now goes by the name of Dr. Victor Helios, is also still alive 200 years later, using the science and techniques that he initially developed to reanimate dead tissue to prolong his own life. Not only that, but continuing his experiments in creating new life. So all of these murder victims are actually his creations that he's put out into the world. So somebody knows about all of this and is killing off his creations one by one. So they need to find out who, and they need to find out why. Now, the interesting thing about Dr. Helios is he's been doing this for 200 plus years, and he's really refined the technique to the point where he can create people who are indistinguishable from normal humans. The difference being they are superhuman. They have incredibly efficient organs, heightened strength, heightened intelligence, and he has been systematically positioning these people in places that he can use to his advantage. So essentially, Dr. Frankenstein, in this version of the story, is the main villain. Yeah, he's set up as the villain, which I thought was a really cool twist. Because it kind of plays into the whole thing with the original story. Everybody says, well, really, Victor was the monster. Well, this kind of takes that idea and runs with it. Like, what if he had continued his experiments for 2 centuries and became even more obsessed with the idea of creating the perfect human, using that science on himself to prolong his own life, becoming more and more power mad, the power to create life, the power to replace inferior Homo sapiens with his superior creations. In fact, we see him in his home life, where he has created a perfect mate for himself, a bride of Frankenstein, his personal vision of the perfect woman. But there's something kind of off about her that he just can't put his finger on, so he destroys her and recreates her again. And we get the impression he's done this a lot of times over the past 200 years, that he's never completely satisfied with his creation. He keeps making little modifications, little tweaks, and she is conditioned to want to please him and to be the perfect woman for him. So he's figured all of this out in the past 200 years, how to create someone to be immediately subservient to him and to want to please him. And all of his creations that he's sent out into the world are like that, in that they are completely loyal and subservient to him, except Deucalion, who knows what he's up to and wants to put a stop to it. Now, this was originally supposed to be a pilot. And you'll notice when you get to the end of the movie, there's a few pretty major plot threads just kind of left dangling, unresolved. And it very much feels like part 1 of a larger story. Now, it's a little fuzzy as to the details, but digging around a little bit, it seems what happened was Dean Koontz had co-developed the story for the movie, and then had some kind of creative differences with the studio and decided to go his own way and do it as a series of novels instead. However, he allowed them to use the story and the characters for the purposes of making the movie. The only catch was they weren't able to continue it as a series, as was the original plan. So I don't know what all the details were. We'll probably never know. I mean, what little information there is online about what happened is pretty vague. So I don't know. I guess some kind of creative differences, but a clause in the contract that allowed them to use the story. Now, the official story is that they went in a different direction with the movie than the direction Dean Koontz went in the book. He did a series of 5 books based on this concept. This is essentially the story of the first book, minus some of the subplots and so on. Because, I mean, you're condensing a 400-page novel down to a 90-minute movie, right? So, obviously, there's going to be some stuff that you have to cut out. But it's one of those strange animals where it's like the book isn't a novelization of the movie, and the movie isn't an adaptation of the book, but they are. So it's kind of strange. So essentially, if you like the movie, and you like the ideas in it, and you want to get the rest of the story, you got to read the books, because that's where the rest of the story plays out, and it doesn't look like we're ever going to get any kind of other adaptation of it. So, I mean, I actually really dug this, and I liked where it was going. I liked the characters in it. I liked the idea of having it in a modern setting, and this whole concept of the monster and the doctor being alive all this time and kind of doing their thing. The monster just trying to survive and trying to track down Dr. Helios, and Dr. Helios continuing his experiments and creating all these other artificial humans for his own purposes. And then on top of that, you have a murder mystery, which is quite a brutal murder mystery too. Just the things that are done to some of these creations by the killer is quite gruesome, where someone knows what Dr. Helios is up to and is systematically killing off all of his creations. They find the killer's lair at one point, and they find jars and jars and jars of organs that have been harvested from all the victims. So he's been doing this for a while. But the big question, of course, is who is it? How does he know who these creations are? And why is he harvesting these organs? So Yeah, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. And if you want the full story, read the books. I'll include Amazon links to the whole works in the description, so if you want the movie, you can get the movie. If you want the books, you can get the books. If you want both, you can get both. So bottom line is, I actually really enjoyed this. I thought it had some really cool ideas. I mean, I've seen a few different movies that have tried to take the Frankenstein concept into the modern era, and some are more successful at it than others. I think this is one of the more successful ones just because it actually puts some interesting spins on it. It's not just Frankenstein in modern day. It's Frankenstein in modern day, but it's the same Frankenstein from the past that's continued until modern day. So I like that idea. It's interesting. And it's different. I haven't really seen that in any others before. It's usually either it's in the past or it's a modern take on it. But this is both. And I like that. So when I actually watched the movie, I had no idea about the backstory of it or anything. I just went into it as another Frankenstein movie to watch. So when it got to the end, I was like, this kind of feels like maybe it was a pilot for a series or something, because that did not resolve everything. So then I looked up the backstory and it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. I had no idea. I didn't even know. Because I had seen the Dean Koontz books around, like at the used bookstores and whatnot, but I didn't really know anything about them. So yeah, essentially, this is the story of the first book. It's called The Prodigal Son. So watch the movie, read the books, enjoy the saga. Yeah, he did 5 books total, and I think it's done now. I don't think he's doing any more. But yeah, interesting stuff. Alrighty, well, I think that is it for this one. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors. Be sure to catch me on Twitch. I stream almost every day. Thank you for using my Amazon links, by the way. As I said, I'll put links for the movie as well as all of the Dean Koontz books so you can get the whole dang story. And I'll see you next time. Until then, sayonara. So this is a very strange series of murders. So this is a very strange series. We discover. So it's not long before we discover that. What do we discover? We don't discover anything. We're just left in the dark the whole time. Oh. So Detective O'Connor meets a strange man, a very large, well-hung man. Has a huge Schwanzstücke. But he...